Carnival in Recife is unlike anything else in the world. The streets are a whirlwind of color, music, and movement. The scent of sweat, beer, and fried food lingers in the humid night air, and the rhythmic beats of frevo pulse through the crowd like a heartbeat. That night, I was with my best friends Lucas, Felipe, and Rafaela. We had started drinking early, hopping from bloco to bloco, our bodies moving with the wave of revelers that packed every street. It was chaos in the best way possible. Costumes of every shape and color surrounded us, painted faces, elaborate headdresses, masks hiding grins, and drunken laughter. Carnival was freedom. And then I saw him. A man, standing completely still in the middle of it all. He wore a gold mask, smooth and expressionless, reflecting the neon glow of the parade lights. His costume was elegant, a dark red suit, perfectly pressed, with a black cape draped over his shoulders. What disturbed me wasn't the outfit. Unlike everyone else, he wasn't dancing. He wasn't talking. He wasn't adjusting his mask, swaying, or reacting to the chaos around him. He was just standing there, watching. And somehow, I knew he was watching me. For a moment, I tried to shake it off. Maybe he was a performer. Maybe he was just drunk. But no matter how I moved, his mask remained pointed directly at me. The air felt heavier, the sounds of the festival suddenly distant, muffled. I looked away for just a second, and when I looked back, he was gone. An hour later, we had moved deeper into the celebration. The music was louder, the drinks were stronger, and the crowd had become an unbreakable wall of moving bodies. I had almost forgotten about the man in the mask, until I saw him again. Same gold mask, same dark red suit. But this time, he was closer. He stood at the entrance of a narrow alleyway, half hidden in the shadows, his posture unnaturally rigid. His head was tilted just slightly, like he was listening to something I couldn't hear. A sharp chill crawled down my spine. He had gotten ahead of us. That didn't make sense. The streets were so packed it took forever to move from one place to another. How had he gotten here so fast? I nudged Lucas, keeping my voice low. "Hey, that guy, the one in the gold mask. Do you see him?" Lucas followed my gaze, squinting. "Who?" I turned back. He was gone. A wave of nausea hit me. I forced a chuckle. Never mind. Probably just too much beer. But something inside me knew. Something was wrong. By the time we reached Marco Zero, I had convinced myself I was just being paranoid. The crowd was massive. There were thousands of people, dozens of masks. It was impossible for someone to be following me, right? But then, as I was talking to a girl I had just met, I glanced over her shoulder, and he was there, not 10 feet away, staring directly at me. His gold mask shimmered under the dim streetlights. His body was completely still. A sickening realization hit me. He wasn't just standing still, he was waiting. I felt my throat tighten. My heart pounded against my ribs. For the first time he moved, one step forward, then another and another, slow, deliberate. I grabbed Lucas' arm, barely able to whisper. "He's here, the guy with the mask. He's coming toward us." Lucas frowned. "Who the hell are you talking about?" I pointed. He was gone. We decided to leave. The energy had changed. Or maybe it was just me. As we walked through the emptying streets, my nerves were completely shot. Every shadow looked like him. Every masked face in the distance felt wrong. At one point, I saw a flash of gold under a street lamp. At another, I thought I saw a shape in the alley behind us. But every time I turned to look into it, there was nothing. It was almost 4 a.m. when I finally stumbled into my apartment. Exhaustion hit me like a truck. My limbs were heavy, my mind foggy. But before I collapsed into bed, I did something stupid. I opened my phone. I had taken dozens of photos that night, selfies, group shots, random pictures of the carnival madness. I swiped through them lazily until my fingers froze. My stomach turned to ice. In 4 different photos in 4 different locations, hidden among the crowd, he was there. The same gold mask, the same unnerving stillness. In most of the pictures, he was just watching from a distance. But in the last one, he was right behind me. And this time, his head was tilted, as if he knew I had finally seen him. I barely slept that night. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his mask. By morning, I had almost convinced myself it was all a bad dream. But then my phone buzzed, a message from an unknown number, with an attachment, a video. I hesitated before opening it. The footage was grainy, shot from an alleyway. The angle was tilted, shaky like it had been filmed from the shadows. My blood ran cold as I realized what I was looking at. It was me, walking home, alone, and behind me, barely visible in the dim light of the street, a figure in a gold mask. The video ended abruptly. Then another message popped up. No words, just an emoji, a tilted head. Carnival in Salvador is pure chaos. The trio Electrico moves through the streets, dragging waves of people with it, their bodies pressing together in rhythm with the music. The scent of acarache, sweat, and beer thickens the humid night air. I was right in the middle of it all, surrounded by my best friends Gabriel, Luana, and Tiago. We had been drinking since sunset, our voices hoarse from shouting over the music, our feet sore from dancing. Everything was a blur of neon lights and glittering costumes. And then I saw her. A woman in a silver dress, standing perfectly still at the edge of the crowd. She was tall, elegant, her dress shimmering under the streetlights. Long black hair cascaded down her back, and though her face was turned toward me, the shadows kept her eyes hidden. My body tensed. She was the only person not moving, not swaying, not laughing, not talking, just standing there, watching. A loud drumbeat startled me, and I looked away for just a second. When I turned back, she was gone. The night carried on, the music pulsed like a heartbeat in my skull. I tried to shake off the unease, but as we moved through the crowd, I couldn't ignore the nagging sensation that I was being watched. At some point, Gabriel clapped me on the shoulder, laughing. "You okay, man? You look like you saw a ghost." I forced a chuckle. "Yeah, just need another drink." We pushed toward a street vendor. As I handed over my money, I glanced to my left. She was there again, closer this time, standing by a street lamp, the glow barely touching the hem of her silver dress. I felt a cold shiver, though the night was hot. I nudged Luana. "That woman over there, do you see her?" Luana followed my gaze, then frowned. "Who?" I turned back. She was gone. My stomach twisted. It was impossible for someone to disappear that quickly in a crowd this dense. I took a slow breath. Maybe it was the alcohol. Maybe my mind was playing tricks on me. Still, I felt her presence. Hours passed. The crowd grew wilder, drunker. The trio Electrico rumbled through the streets, the energy intoxicating. At one point, I got separated from my friends while buying another drink. The vendor's stall was tucked in a quieter alleyway, away from the madness. As I counted my change, a sharp prickle of unease crawled up my spine. I turned my head slowly. She was there, standing just a few feet away. I could see her face now. Her eyes were empty. Not hollow, not missing, just empty, like staring into a void. My breath hitched. The sounds of the festival muffled, like I had been sucked into a vacuum. I stepped back, knocking over a beer bottle. The crash echoed through the narrow street. "Hey, careful, man," the vendor muttered. I pointed toward the woman. "Do you see her?" He glanced up. There was no one there. I turned back to him, my pulse hammering. The vendor frowned. "You okay? Maybe you should slow down on the cachaça." I nodded weakly, grabbing my drink with trembling fingers. I turned to leave and nearly screamed. She was right next to me. Her lips moved, forming silent words. I bolted. I found my friends again, panting, my heartbeat thundering in my ears. Gabriel grinned. "Dude, you look like you saw the devil." "There's a woman," I gasped. "She keeps appearing and disappearing. And just now she was right next to me." Luana frowned. "What woman?" I scanned the crowd. She was gone. Thiago smirked. "Maybe she's into you, bro." I didn't laugh. We moved with the parade, but the fun was gone. Everywhere I looked, I expected to see her. Then, as we reached another square, the crowd parted slightly, and there she was, standing directly in my path. I froze. This time she was closer than ever. Her lips barely parted like she was about to say something, but instead she just tilted her head, and then she smiled. Not a normal smile. A slow, eerie grin that stretched too wide, too unnatural. I stumbled back into Gabriel, grabbing his shirt. "She's here, right there." Gabriel turned, frowning. "Dude, what the hell are you talking about?" I turned back, she was gone. I told my friends I was leaving. I needed to get out of there. As I walked away, my skin prickled with dread. Every shadow, every alleyway felt like it was watching me. I took out my phone, desperate for distraction. I swiped through the photos we had taken, and then I saw it. In every single picture, somewhere in the background, she was there, near the Trio Electrico, hidden behind the street vendor, a reflection in a store window, watching me. And then in the very last picture, taken just minutes ago, she was right behind me. I dropped my phone, my breath hitched, the street was too quiet. I reached for my phone with shaking fingers and pressed the power button. The screen glitched. Then for half a second, the camera app opened on its own. I saw myself in real time, and behind me, she was there. But this time she was whispering something. The screen froze, and then total darkness. Carnival in São Paulo never sleeps. The city transforms into a living entity. Music shakes the streets, neon lights flicker against towering buildings, and a sea of bodies moves in sync with the deafening beats of the Trio Electrico. Laughter and shouting echo through the avenues, blending with the pounding of drums. The air is thick with beer, sweat, and the scent of grilled meat, a cocktail of chaos and celebration. I was right in the middle of it all, surrounded by my best friends Andre, Camila, and Vinicius. We had been drinking since sunset, our voices hoarse from screaming over the music, our bodies aching from hours of dancing. Every street was packed, every bar overflowing, every alleyway humming with activity. It was intoxicating, pure, reckless energy. But that night something felt off. At first I thought it was just the exhaustion setting in, the overwhelming sea of people pressing in on all sides. But then I saw him, a man standing completely still amidst the moving crowd, dressed in a black suit and a top hat. His posture was unnaturally rigid, his presence like a crack in the fabric of reality. He wasn't swaying, wasn't singing, wasn't part of the revelry. He was just watching, and worse, his eyes were locked onto me. A chill crept up my spine, cutting through the heat of the crowd. My instinct told me to look away, to pretend I hadn't seen him. But something about his presence unsettled me to my core. I forced a laugh, shaking off the unease. It was Carnival, after all. People wore bizarre costumes all the time. Maybe he was a street performer, maybe a prankster. At least that's what I told myself. We drifted through the streets, following the pulse of the city. The Trio Electrico thundered through the avenues, dragging the crowd with it. Lights flashed, casting momentary shadows that flickered like ghosts. At some point, Camila grabbed my arm, pointing at a group of people dressed as zombies. "Damn, that guy's makeup is insane," she laughed. I turned to look, but instead of zombies I saw him, the man in the black suit. This time, he was closer. He stood by a lamppost at the edge of the crowd, his face obscured by the shadows of his hat. His posture remained stiff, unnatural, like a mannequin planted in the middle of the chaos. My stomach twisted into a knot. "You guys see that guy in the top hat?" I asked, trying to sound casual. Vinicius frowned. "What guy?" Camila turned, scanning the street behind us. I blinked, and he was gone. A wave of nausea rolled through me. I forced a grin, shaking my head. Never mind. Probably just too much beer. But deep inside, I knew I hadn't imagined it. By 2 a.m., we decided to take a break at a street bar. The pounding music faded slightly, replaced by the distant echo of the carnival madness. Andre stood up. "Gonna hit the bathroom. Be right back." 5 minutes passed, 10, 15. He never came back. Camila glanced toward the bathroom door. "He's taking forever." I got up, brushing off the creeping sense of unease. You'll go check on him. The bathroom was down a narrow alley behind the bars, a single flickering light casting long shadows. The walls were covered in old posters peeling at the edges, their colors faded by time. When I reached the door, I knocked. Andre? Silence. I pushed it open. Empty. My pulse quickened. I hurried back to our table. Did you guys try calling him? Vinicius raised an eyebrow. Calling who? I froze. Andre. Camila let out a small laugh. Who's Andre? The air around me shifted. My mouth went dry. Stop messing with me. He was just here. Vinicius' expression darkened. Dude, it's just been the three of us all night. The world tilted. My hands trembled as I unlocked my phone, scrolling through our pictures from earlier in the night. There had to be proof. There had to be. But Andre wasn't in any of them. Panic crawled up my spine. Selfies, group shots, videos, nothing. Just me, Camila, and Vinicius. It was impossible. And then something else caught my eye. In 3 different photos taken at different times in different places. The man in the top hat was there. In the first photo, he was across the street, barely visible in the background. In the second, he was in the crowd, his face half obscured by a mask of another reveler. And in the final picture, he was standing right behind me. My breath caught in my throat. I slammed my phone on the table. Look at this. My voice was barely a whisper. Camila squinted. What am I looking at? I pointed at the man in the top hat. Her face remained blank. You don't see him? I whispered. She shook her head. I ran. I don't remember saying goodbye. I don't remember the streets I passed. I just ran. By the time I reached my apartment, my breath was ragged, my heart hammering against my ribs. I needed to call Andre. I opened my contacts. His number was gone. His name wasn't there. It was like he had never existed. I sat on my bed, staring at my screen, trying to process everything. My mind was spiraling, searching for logic where there was none. Then a notification popped up. An unknown number, a single message. I hesitated before opening it. He never existed. But now you exist for me. A shiver ran through my entire body. I threw my phone onto the bed, my breath shallow, and then another notification, a new photo in my gallery. Hands shaking, I opened it. A dark, empty street, and under the flickering street lamp, the man in the top hat. This time he wasn't just standing, he was waving,